In my previous video, I decided to travel from Hanoi to Sulawesi, Indonesia, in order to retrace the steps of my childhood. Join me as I make the final trip up to visit the mountain village where I lived all those years ago. Here we are, it's a beautiful morning at the village, and you can see it's literally at the foot of these mountains, right next to them. Couldn't be any closer. So we're going to be going up into those mountains for a good 4 to 6 hour hike, depending on how out of shape I am. And I'm sure it's going to be an interesting 3 days, and I'll be completely out of touch with internet and phone, so I'm just going to be the way life is supposed to be, the way God intended. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Without ceremony, I headed out to meet the rest of the crew going to the mountain village. After chatting with a few people, it was time to move. Wasn't expecting quite this much of a rush. Very, very special day. My good friend, us together, right? Yes, on the swings. He remembers. Okay. All right, ragazzi. Our trek would be in 4 phases. Part 1 would be about an hour or so, going up a small creek. Part 2 was going over 2 mountain passes. Part 3 would be almost 2 hours going up a river. And Part 4 would be the final hike up the mountainside to the village. Total time would be about 6 hours. It's got a little bit sunny, so I got out my hat so I don't burn my nose. Given the fact that I live in Vietnam, the appropriate color scheme I have for my hat is, of course, Vietnam tiger stripe. Light gives it a depth, kind of mystique. Lovely. I could do this every week and not get tired of it. Start going up the 2 mountain passes. However, I'd like to get out of these wading shoes because these things are flimsy. The problem is the guy with my hiking boots has them in his backpack, and he's about 20 minutes down the trail. Tunggu di sini karena saya ada kaki yang lembut sekali. So, nothing to do but wait. Oh, there we are. There's my shoes. Okay, I can put my boots on. We can all go. Yay! Then it was up the first mountain ridge, the ground nearly running parallel with the tree trunks, it seemed. Anyways, we got about another 60 vertical feet to the top of this one. Then we got to do one more. Now it's time to go down. Down and then up again. Turun dan naik.
Across a little creek and up the second pass.
They don't call it rainforest for nothing. Every rock is covered in slime.
Di Vietnam ada binatang ini.
Oh yeah, banyak. Yes, do they have leeches in Vietnam? I'm like, yes, they do. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got one on me too. Yeah, it's just normal. You always get leeches. In flip-flops with 20 pounds of gear. You know, when a 22-year-old girl half your weight and a foot shorter than you can breeze over stuff like that in flip-flops, you know you need some work. Funny is all these kids are going with me, but not a single one was even born when I was last here. Apparently my reputation precedes me. Well, we had literally like a 15-minute lunch break, and it's time for us to roll.
Now on to part 3, the longest and most difficult section of the hike. Almost a 2-hour battering on rocks. But the beautiful blue waters and sheer rock walls were a majestic sight all the same.
These are kind of dangerous. What if I'm right about here and then all of a sudden we get a flash flood? You know, and these rocks are too big, you can't run. So if you're stuck in a doorway like this, one side, the other side, and you get a flash flood and you're in the middle of it, you're not going to be able to run fast enough. Forwards or backwards. You'll fall and you'll tumble and then you'll just lose everything. So, if you're not paying attention to the water levels, you get in one of those, you get flushed out like you're in a toilet.
Speaking of flash floods, I was reminded of one of my early experiences on this river. I was with my mother and father and one other man as we hiked up the river to the village in 1985. It was a nice day just like today, but just as we were finishing up the river crossings, the beautiful turquoise suddenly changed to brown, and the river rose so rapidly we couldn't make our last few river crossings to get to the village. So they cut some poles down and made a little plastic house, and we sat underneath the shelter, and I laid on my parents' laps trying to get some sleep the whole night as the river raged behind us The next morning, some of the men came down from the village to look for us. The river was now lower. They showed us the way across, but my father was too exhausted to carry me. So one of the young men named Mesak put me on his back and carried me the last half hour up to the village. I still remember that day very clearly, although it was about 40 years earlier, and I hadn't had the chance to find that man who picked me up, but I was looking for him.
And here's the confluence. And we're going to lose half the river. Thank goodness.
With a short break, we were now beginning the last phase of our trip, part 4, the final climb to the village.
Here we are, all going up the 4th and final stage.
But the bustling village I had known in the 1990s was now just a shell of its former self.
And here we have our first house. Looks like someone actually lives in it, that you can see maybe. A lot of the houses are falling apart because a lot of people don't live here anymore. It's quite a sad thing to see. That used to be a really important house right there. The entire village is virtually abandoned. Slowly over time, people moved out to the coast, to that village on the coast, bit by bit. I used to go to this house. We had meetings and parties and celebrations here, and they would play music, and it's gone. They're gone. That mountain really stands out. Wherever you are, you can always see it standing like a guard, a sentinel. But here's where I lived. 80s. Early 90s, and it's just so overgrown. It used to be bare ground here. Now it's so overgrown. I think like 1 or 2 families actually live here anymore, and that's it. Everybody else has moved to the lowlands. Really kind of sad to see, actually.
As I traversed the last few meters, it was almost as if the sky welcomed me home with a little gift, for old time's sake.
It just started to rain, and that is so typical. I've done so many hikes up that mountain because you start in the morning, and so when we either get here or just before we get here, it starts to rain, have the afternoon rain. Man, this brings back memories.
Tune in next time as I discover all the things in my village that have changed, but also some things that are still the same.